Okay, good evening, everybody. Today is Thursday, October 2nd, and this is the Teaching and Learning Committee meeting for the School District of Waukesha. Can we start with a verification that the meeting was properly posted?
Yes.
Thank you, Stacy. Our first item of business is approval of the teaching and learning minutes from the September 2nd, 2025 meeting.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Anything else? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. All right, we're now at the point of our meeting where there's an opportunity for citizens to speak. We have 3 speakers who signed up this evening. Because there are 6 speakers or less, speakers will be notified at 3 minutes, but allowed up to 5 minutes to complete their comments. We expect all speakers to honor our time limit, refrain from using any inappropriate language, and to be respectful in their comments. Speakers who do not meet these expectations may be prohibited from speaking at future board or committee meetings. Speakers are here to address the committee, not the audience. The school board and this committee does not endorse any comments made by members of the community here tonight. We would like to remind our community members of the impact of their words on others and that our children are watching. We commit to communicating with you in respectful and productive ways and ask that you do the same. We also expect that the audience will be respectful of the speaker and of the board and refrain from responding with verbal comments, cheering, applause, or other behavior that will detract from the meeting. Please note that no obstructions can be created between the board and the audience. Visual aids cannot be used, and the area behind the speaker and podium should be clear during public comment. Also, in order to respect our speakers and our meeting participants, please silence your cell phones. Our first speaker tonight will be Maria Hawkins. It's right on the microphone. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you all for your time and your commitment. I'm going to be talking tonight about Waukesha's dual language program. I'm Dr. Maren Maria Hawkins, but no one can pronounce my name, so everyone just calls me Dr. Maria. I am the parent of a Hawthorne Elementary School dual language learner. I teach at Carroll University, and I have previously taught at UWM and UW Parkside, and I'm a Waukesha resident. Tonight, I will be talking briefly about the importance of the dual language program and why the program needs more support, such as updating our materials and overall more promotion. The dual language program is something unique to the school district of Waukesha. We're a good school district. We're not the highest rated school district, and that's okay. And so one of the things that really sets us apart from other districts and attracts families is the dual language program. It's why myself and my family moved from Milwaukee, was to enroll in the dual language program. It also imparts students with one of the most valuable skill sets possible. You would think as a college professor in STEM, the number one skill my students wish they had upon graduation was something like more data analysis or more grant writing, but it's not. The number one skill my students wish they had is another language. It is the thing that sets them apart from other job applicants. It is the thing that opens up more and in many cases paid internships. And bilingualism makes them better problem solvers because they have a whole another set of skills and knowledge to tap into. I want to also talk briefly about the difference between dual language and ESL, or English as a second language, because this has come up throughout the last couple months. When my family immigrated from Mexico to Waukesha, the only option was ESL. It was an option of survival, and it is an important option that we offer. It's not, how do I want to put this? It's not the most ideal option when there is a program like dual language available, because there are certain skills it doesn't build, which contributed to my grandfather dropping out after the 8th grade in Waukesha. ESL is a critical service, but it does not have the same benefits as dual language. In ESL, students learn English. Dual language is a different program entirely. It promotes bilingualism, biliteracy, and multiculturalism, which are fundamental in today's world, no matter what job you are working in. ESL is a vital service that we need, but if you are an ESL learner, in many cases, you can't actually then take a professional job in your native language like Spanish. This is because you are considered lacking in bilingualism and biliteracy, and I see this with students, I also see this with my employees. I see it in my college students who took ESL but weren't in a dual language program because they didn't have access to it. They have to start over despite the fact that they grew up in the language at 100 or
2
200
minutes.
levels of Spanish to learn the grammar and professional vocabulary that they missed, paying out of their own pocket. Dual language also teaches students when they are at what is known as their critical period for language development. Kids need to start learning a second language before 10, and that critical language period ends by 18. That is not to say adults can't learn another language, they can, but it takes longer, it's more difficult, and it becomes an out-of-pocket expense. So why not give our students such an incredible opportunity when they are neurologically primed for it, an opportunity that we already have? Students who are truly bilingual and biliterate have twice the job opportunities. They even earn 5 to 20% more money than their monolingual counterparts. And depending on the field, bilingual individuals earn 44% more than their monolingual counterparts. Moreover, our bilingual students reap the health benefits of being bilingual. Yes, you heard me right, the health benefits. Bilingual individuals have improved executive brain function, mental ability, and crucially, being bilingual can actually delay the onset of dementia and Alzheimer's. Being bilingual also improves your brain's cognitive reserve, which is critical to maintain function as you age. Being bilingual helps you no matter your age, no matter your career, and no matter how much, if any, education you obtain after high school. You're eligible for more scholarships, going up to a full ride at some of our local institutions, and summer payment through graduate school up to $15,000. Waukesha's dual language program doesn't just help students in their K-12 learning journeys, it improves their whole lives and it improves the Waukesha community as a whole. The DL program makes us unique as a district, promotes problem solving among students and graduate, and has the potential to change the economic outcomes of our students' entire lives. We need to support the DL program, update our website, promote this program, as it not only attracts families, but improves the entire community. Thank you. Oh, 2 seconds.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Greta Bailey. And it looks like you have Carmen with you, is that right? Yeah. Okay. This is Carmen or Greta, or is Greta, okay.
Hola, me llamo Greta. Hello, I'm Greta. Yo me gusta leer en 2 idiomas. I like to read in 2 languages. Si yo no estaba en el programa de Dual Language y alguien necesita ayuda y yo no puedo ayudar porque yo no hablo español. If I wasn't in the dual language program and someone only speaks Spanish, and I know what it was, but I couldn't help them because I couldn't speak in Spanish. I love my teachers. I want to finish 5th grade in Harvard, and I'm only in 2nd grade. Yo me gustan mis maestras y yo quiero terminar esta escuela en 5º grado y yo solo está en 2º grado.
Thank you, Greta. Sorry, it's kind of weird. There you go. Okay, next speaker is Carmen Bailey. Welcome, Carmen.
That's my daughter Greta. She's in 2nd grade at Hawthorne. And as a testament to the dual language program.
Can you grab your microphone? Just push the button on the bottom. Thanks.
Oh, sorry. Okay. My name is Carmen Bailey, and that was my daughter Greta. And I'm so proud of her for doing that. She, as a testament to the dual language program, she wrote that and translated it by herself. And I also have two older children who I asked to write what they like about the dual language program. They're at swimming practice tonight, so I'm going to read what they wrote for them. This is from my son, Ford, who is a fourth grader at Hawthorne in the dual language program. Hola, me llamo Ford. Hello, my name is Ford. Soy un estudiante en Hawthorne Elementary. I am a student at Hawthorne Elementary. Soy en un clase de español e inglés y me gusta aprender en dos lenguajes. I am in a class of English and Spanish, and I love to learn in two languages. Es muy útil ser bilingüe porque puedes hablar con alguien que solo habla inglés o español. It's very useful being bilingual because if someone only speaks English or Spanish, I can talk to them. No quiero que este programa dual se cae. I don't want this dual language program to fall. Un año, mi maestra hizo agua de Jamaica, agua de pepino, horchata, y eso me aprendió de cultura. 1 year, my teacher made hibiscus juice, cucumber juice, and horchata, and that made me learn Hispanic culture. And this is from my oldest, Jake, who is in 6th grade at Butler Middle School, still in the dual language program. I first started going to Hawthorne in 2019. I was in kindergarten, and I remember not wanting to learn Spanish. After the first day, I could already count to 5 in Spanish. After each day, week, and year, I got better and more interested in this language. Spanish is an important language, and a lot of America speaks Spanish. It will help me in my career and help me understand more people. The more Spanish I know, the more I can understand people and more pop culture. I'm afraid if Hawthorne closes, these kids and tweens won't be able to have a nearby amazing dual language school they can go to. Not only is it a school where I learned Spanish, this school has amazing staff and facilities. I always remember loving every teacher I had and wanting to thank them for helping me. This building is fantastic and easy to navigate. If Hawthorne closes, we will lose an amazing school, community, and wonderful staff. And then I will finish with my words. My husband and I were both fortunate enough to live in Costa Rica and Argentina, respectively, for 1.5 to 2 years during our young adulthood. We learned Spanish and were excited to enroll our children in the dual language program to ensure that they got the chance to learn Spanish as well. Through the years, Doug and I lost our ability to speak with each other in our secret language, as the kids could understand everything we were saying. They can now converse with us and others in Spanish, enjoy media in Spanish, and read and write in Spanish. We hope they can continue to build on their knowledge and use it for their jobs, their community or church involvement, or travel experiences, as my husband and I have been able to do with translation opportunities and building relationships with neighbors and in our jobs. Hawthorne has been an amazing school, and we've seen our kids thrive. Their teachers have been incredible, and we are grateful to them, aides, and administration for making the dual language program amazing and providing our kids with a robust education. Public education is a service, but also an investment, one that can yield great rewards. When our children are able to receive an education with programs to arm them with skills and expand their horizons from teachers who have the necessary support, time, and resources, we will build up a generation of leaders, educators, and helpers, whether in a professional capacity or otherwise. At the very least, we will have citizens who are able to navigate the world and society with critical thinking and experience, compassion for others, optimism for a better world, and the skills to build it. I urge you to invest in the dual language program. It helps everyone to feel comfortable in school and challenges many students to think about things in a new way. And at the end, they can achieve the seal of biliteracy, a boon to their professional and personal lives. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to start with our literacy content area tonight, and our first topic is literacy curriculum and instruction updates for the elementary dual language program. Skennerman.
Thank you, Dr. Piasek. We have a few people joining us tonight, but as they come up, I just want to do some introductions and share a little bit more about where we're at with dual language within our multilingual program. Clearly, Melissa Yao needed some juice for her computer. So Melissa Yao is here, Director of Elementary Teaching and Learning, and also Lisa Lawrence, who is one of our coordinators who has been servicing and supporting literacy instruction at the elementary level. She serves as our dual literacy coordinator, and she has been doing that.
Keep talking.
So in a moment, she'll pull up a graphic that speaks to our multilingual program and just how the many dimensions of the program itself, including dual language program, the world languages that we offer throughout our system, and the seal of biliteracy, all things that were talked about earlier. One thing I do want to touch on is where we're at with staffing. So previously, we had a teaching and learning director that worked closely with the multilingual program and also oversaw and guided other areas such as middle school. Where we are at is in the current state, we felt it was important, as she has exited the system, we felt it was important to pause on hiring for that position. And we really put a lot of thought into this and really considered everything going on with optimizing the future, but also looking at our team's strengths currently within our system. And so what you see here is a list of our staff that do and continue to support the dual language program within the multilingual program. And many of them are here tonight, whether they're at the closest table or further back in the seats. But we have a multilingual coordinator, Jamie Dittman, who continues to serve throughout the district. Lisa Lawrence, like I said, the elementary dual language literacy coordinator. We have support staff that help with enrollment and transportation, and also a bilingual family and community liaison that we continue to have to support our students and families. One of the things we did new this year is we brought together a district leadership team for all things around our multilingual program. We felt it was important to set some priorities for the year, including creating and sharing roles and responsibility documents. Oftentimes, some people wonder like who to go to for what, and so we've clarified that. We share that with principals today. That will be in the next Explore as well. And then also looking at our translation and interpretation services and supports. We've created a nice, easy one-pager for staff that they can use moving forward. All these things have been in place, but we're just trying to streamline and tighten it up to provide easy access. One of our other priorities this year is redesigning the website. We've also continued to work on our guidebook and making updates to that. That's been an annual piece that we continue to do. And as always, we're always looking at budgeting and staffing for the multilingual program. Tonight in the Student Services Committee meeting, Mr. Pat shared how our enrollment in charter school application windows will be adjusted this year. They are all being moved back about a month. So he shared specific dates with that. And so part of some of the open enrollment pieces in charter school application windows, we often have parent information nights for multiple programs, but also open houses. And so we are working to establish this based on the new timelines that Mr. Pat put forward. And tonight we wanted to share that our parent information nights are scheduled for Thursday, December 11th and Thursday, January 22nd. These dates will coincide with the new enrollment periods that Mr. Pat shared. So after tonight, most of this information we'll move it to the website and have that available for families. And if they have more questions. So I wanted to provide a little brief update of where we're at with things, but also then turn it over to Melissa Yao and Lisa Lawrence to really talk about that literacy update and what's been going on with our new curriculum and our earliest learners. And we're seeing lots of good success, so a nice celebration for them to share.
All right, so the goal of our dual language program is for our students who are in that program to come out of that as bilingual. And that means that they will be biliterate. So they will be at or above grade level in English and in Spanish. And I think that that's a really wonderful gift that I wish that I had, but I appreciate getting to be a part of giving that gift to other people.
Our bilingual program, dual language program, is built off of many. Thank you. I turned it off when I turned my. Is built off of many important premises that are built off of research around bilingualism, multilingualism, dual language programs. And these are three of them that we really embody within the school district of Waukesha. The first one is that Spanish is used to develop full bilingualism by lifting the presence of the language in our students' lives at school. That really is one of the major reasons why we began as a 90-10 program, needing to really establish Spanish within the walls of our school for students because of their exposure outside of school. And then our second premise is that literacy means equal attention to oracy, reading, writing, and metalinguistic awareness. And this is something that we keep at the forefront of our work at all times. And the third premise is that multilingual students use all of their linguistic resources in both English and Spanish in their learning. We acknowledge that when a child comes to us in the classroom, they're bringing to us everything that they know in both languages. We don't just see them as an English speaker at times and as a Spanish speaker at other times. We see them as a whole child, and they're not siloed. The other thing that you'll see up there is the reading rope for multilingual learners. You guys are all very familiar with the reading rope. And the one addition to the reading rope for multilingual learners is this oral language development. And the oral language development is this gold strand that actually accompanies every single strand on the reading rope. And that's because oral language serves as the foundation for every other strand on the reading rope. So we keep that in the forefront of our work.
One thing that's really special about our dual language program here in the school district of Waukesha is that it's a two-way dual language program, which means that our classes are made up of native Spanish speakers and native English speakers. And so in our program, students are learning simultaneously English and Spanish with that goal, as I said before, that they are going to end up with proficiency in both languages. We started out with our two-way dual language being a 90-10 model, and last year we did some shifting to make it an 80-20 with really lifting more literacy, and so we're going to dig into that about what that 80-20 looks like through instruction during the day.
Melissa, before you go on, can you just explain the 90-10, like you're talking about language acquisition?
Yes, we're
Overall,
gonna.
okay.
Yeah. So in a 90-10 model, it meant that 90% of the student's day in kindergarten and first grade was in Spanish, and then 10% was in English. And that 10% of the time in kinder and first grade was what we called English language development. Of course, we had to give it an acronym, ELD time, and that was really for like social studies and science, where we would do lots of oral language, but left our social studies and science content areas. As you have all been part of the process when we've been going through our curriculum adoption, we really wanted to make sure that we were lifting literacy and really being more explicit in our Spanish and in our English. And so we switched over to an 80-20 model. So now 80% of kindergarten and first grade is in Spanish, and 20% of the day is in English. But that time has switched over into English instruction. So they are receiving academic time in building those foundations of reading, phonics, word study, and then that application and practice. So before they get into kinder and first grade, they are in 4K, and our 4K model is 100% in Spanish. And so we'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like. We'll dig into more and focus in on what that K in first grade really looks like during that literacy time. And then so that you know what happens after they leave kinder and first grade, in second through fifth, it's a 60-40 model where 60% of their day is in Spanish. That's through literacy, science, math, and our social emotional, and then 40% of the day is in English, where they get English literacy, and social studies. So in 4K, another area I love to talk about, where 100% of their day is in Spanish, we have some really great resources that help lift Spanish, that make it very fun and engaging and visual and tactile. So one of the resources that we use is Haggerty, that really helps build students' phonological awareness, where they're playing with songs, building that oral language, those beginning skills of learning how syllables work and sounds in words. And then we use a program called Estrellita, which really helps with that beginning foundational skills of phonics, where they're learning letter sounds, syllables, and building that. And then we also have our handwriting without tears that also happens in our English classrooms, but in our dual classrooms, they're delivering that same instruction in Spanish.
So now, kindergarten through 5th grade. As you know, we took on Benchmark Advance and Adelante last year. What that looked like for kindergarten and 1st grade was they received a full Adelante kit, and then they received the materials and support that they needed in advance for their English language development time. The feedback that we've gotten from K-1 teachers is that they feel really happy to have all the resources. That's one quote up there from a 1st grade teacher. She said she's elated to have a program that's so comprehensive. She's no longer wasting time looking for activities, interventions. Everything is at her fingertips, and that's pretty phenomenal for a bilingual teacher to say. And so on the 2nd through 5th grade side, all teachers received a Benchmark Advance and a Benchmark Adelante full curriculum. What we did is that we worked with Benchmark to put together a framework in which we do some of the lessons in a unit in Spanish, some in English, and they all work up to the overall theme. We ensure that teachers aren't repeating a lesson in one language that they did in the other language. And so they have also given feedback that they really appreciate that work and the program. Our daily schedule looks like this. On the left-hand side is our kindergarten and 1st grade literacy instruction. They have a full 120-minute block for Spanish literacy that allows them to do the full and complete Adelante program. They then have 50 minutes a day in which they do English language development. And we break that down in 15 minutes for building reading foundations, and then 35 minutes for phonics and word study and application. In the 2nd through 5th grade, that looks like 70 minutes of Spanish literacy instruction daily and 70 minutes of English literacy instruction daily. That was a transition that we made as well when we moved into Benchmark. Previously, we did one full literacy unit that was 6 weeks long in Spanish, and then the next unit was in English. So every 6 weeks, we were switching the language of instruction. That is not what research says is best practice. It was best for us at the time, but with this amazing curriculum, we were able to transition to a better model for our students. So they are using both Spanish and English in the literacy context every single day. When we did and worked on the curriculum adoption for kinder and 1st grade, we pulled together specific components of Benchmark Advance that we wanted teachers to be utilizing. We chose the portion of building reading foundations because it includes a read aloud, which we know is really important for both reading fluency and oral language, but also for building the themes that kids are learning about. Additionally, we wanted kids to be doing phonics and word study every single day in English. We know that English has very specific skills that are not present in the Spanish language. And so we wanted that to be present in everyday instruction. So they do the Benchmark Advanced Phonics every day, just like the students in the monolingual classroom do. We integrated student application because we need them to be applying the skills and transferring the skills that they're learning. And we also included a piece of translanguaging. We could not take on the full Benchmark Adelante curriculum, or the advanced curriculum. We did certain pieces, but we knew that some other things were still laying out there. For example, English grammar. And we didn't want kids to be missing some of these grammar skills in K through first. So what we do is we have translanguaging or bridging lessons in which teachers are using what they learned in Spanish and they're bridging it to English. So they're getting the learning in English as well and not missing. I wanted to show you just a little bit about the evolution of the word study curriculum. So on the left-hand side, you'll see that in the beginning of second grade, this was a couple years ago, this was the first unit in English that second graders got, and this was their phonics. Over the 4 weeks, they got short vowels, all of them, in CVC words in the first week. And then we moved on to long vowel sounds. Very different than what we're doing now, which is using the advanced continuum, in which those skills are addressed at an appropriate and slower rate, and beginning in kindergarten. It's been a really great transition. The other thing that has been accompanying the taking on of a new curriculum has been teacher professional development. As you all know, our teachers are all completing Cox Campus training, and we wanted there to be a Spanish component as well. So within district, we created 4 Spanish modules that teachers are completing. Phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, phonics, and then oral language. They are getting paid to complete these modules, and then they are bringing that learning back to our dual language PLCs at each school, and talking about what they learned, doing some application and connection to the benchmark curriculum. So this is just a quote from something that they learned. Another aspect is that we're doing all of these modules in Spanish. An important piece of a bilingual teacher's professional development is continued learning in the Spanish language and improving their own Spanish language. So we did all these modules in Spanish, so they're responding in Spanish to all their questions.
And with that, we'll take any questions or comments that you have.
Thank you. Mrs. Kozlowski?
Thank you. I remember when we were preparing to look at the curriculum and go through all of this because of our rotation and our commitment to being able to do this. And, you know, there's so much going on in our district as we talk about optimizing our future and the focus on the dual language. And I think it's really loud and clear that we believe heavily in the dual language program. We are investing in the curriculum. We are doing all of the things to really make this program robust. Lisa, I really liked hearing on how we're understanding what the standards say and how we're applying it and making sure professional development rolls through that and the adequate split between the Spanish and the English. I mean, I remember I toured with Dee when we were doing the 6 weeks. And so I got to see the different classrooms at the different points as to what section we were in. But I think this is really great to hear and to be able to see the pieces of that. So we're 1 full year in, which means that I would expect this next year has further traction as to the strength that this program has on all of the kids and the staff and what we're really doing. So I think this was really great to see and really encouraging. And I always like hearing that the staff is happy with it.
Yeah, it's very important, right? Happy teachers, happy kids.
Mrs. Koenig?
Thank you. This was a really terrific overview of the program. It has been exciting over the last 25 years to be able to watch the evolution of this program. You know, being here and coming from Milwaukee, teaching in a bilingual school in Milwaukee, what brought me out here was White Rock, Little White Rock, when it was the only school in the district that had anything like this going on. And I always dreamed that it would eventually grow and just flourish, and I'm happy to see that it has been. To see where it is now compared to where it was is exciting, and it's been really neat to be able to be a part of that and just know the benefits, you know, firsthand. And so this was a really great overview for anyone that doesn't understand the dual language program or maybe didn't know how it started. And it was a very small one, 25 years ago, and just to see where it's gone, and the amount of effort that's being put into it now, and recognizing that it is truly, a jewel and a gem, and something that we really could be known, regionally for if we do it the right way and continue in the direction we're going and have been doing. So thank you both for giving us this awesome overview.
So I don't take lightly the work that it appears that is going into fusing the Spanish and the English literacy curricular components. The motivation behind establishing all new curriculum district-wide was so that there would be consistency regardless of where a student goes to school, and so that the staff had that flexibility and the parents could trust that they were getting the same product everywhere. Can you tell me a little bit about what that looks like in how the decisions are being made about how those two pieces come together, and what the teamwork from school to school and within the district office looks like?
Yeah, so one thing that's been very exciting with the adoption of Benchmark and Adelante is the content is the same, the language just changes. So now our dual and mono teachers can talk about what is being studied and work together more closely to really benefit students. The same thing happens from our standpoint of working together here at the district office between our dual and monolingual. We're able to, we work side by side, and we're doing it all day today, working around interventions. And so we're really able to sit down, look for resources, strategies, and doing it simultaneously for both languages, looking at then too, when is it, as Lisa talked before, when might the student need some trans-languaging, when might they need an intervention, more instruction, a second dose, a tier 2, and in which language are they needing it? Where are the strengths, where are those areas that we're needing to help fill to get them to their next step? So our curricular resources have really allowed us to even collaborate much more together. And we're doing it from the start. So at elementary, when we were looking for our new math programming and our literacy, from the very beginning, we made a commitment that we were not going to, we were going to weed out any program that didn't have just as high quality resource in Spanish as in English. And so we're not having to do as much afterthought and work because we are doing it right from the front, because we have said this is important for all the learners that we have here in the district.
I think it's a unique opportunity where in every other place, we're kind of forced to pick the one thing that we're going to do everywhere. And so we make those trade-offs and we pick the best fit for everybody. In this particular case, we have two really high-quality resources, and you get to pick the best of both of those. So I think that's a nice commitment to the program, too.
I will add, too, that we couldn't do it without the high-quality teachers that we have. People from the start who are native Spanish speakers, teachers who are going back and adding certifications and continuing to be learners themselves, whether it's, learning more in Spanish, learning more in English. And because of that richness, we have such quality, from our principals to our interventionists, our assistants, the classroom teachers, even many specialists who are speaking in 2 languages. So it really is a gem that we have here in the school district.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Okay. Thank you very much for the update. Okay, moving next to discussion and possible action on a curricular resource for 2 lessons contained within the Health 9 course.
Yeah, so we have Mark Leonard and Laura Ryan joining us tonight for a follow-up conversation regarding the suicide prevention units as part of the health curriculum. So I'll turn it over to them, and they'll share a little bit of the work that's been done, and we can open it up for discussion. This is always the nerve-wracking part. I'm just going to say that. Everyone is like, is it going to connect? Is it not? Is it? Oh my gosh. So thanks for being patient with us as we switch out.
And it's never fast. Good evening. So our journey began last March, if you remember back to last March, when middle school was looking into a new schedule and possibly rescheduling around their PE and maybe some health options, which then led us to a discussion about what exactly was being covered pertaining to suicide prevention at the 9th grade. And so we, tonight, Mark and I, as student service and teaching and learning team, are back to review. We'll review again the state statute and then summarize some of the steps that we've taken since we've last been here. So some of the things that we'll summarize is some work that has been done with a team on suicide prevention, parent communication that has been drafted by the same team, and then some future steps for our October 23rd professional development time. So just to review, again, the Wisconsin State Statute 118.01 basically is a law that establishes that school must address suicide prevention with students. Further clarification from DPI revealed that it needs to happen sometime between 7th and 12th grade. And SDW was already doing this in their 9th grade health required class for freshmen. As we finalize eventually a new schedule for middle school, we'll have a better idea of what this could possibly look like then as well. But we really needed to start with 9th grade to see kind of a scope and sequence and tighten it up. So as we started to look into 9th grade, we realized that the lessons on suicide prevention were not common across our buildings. And so that's what we have really been working on, to try to tighten it up and to have a specific scope and sequence and to have it common for all 3 buildings. So from our last time here, we have done several things. We gathered a team of health teachers and some student service members as well, and they used the state statute required content from the DPI suicide prevention lessons to create two suicide prevention common lessons. So they did not use the whole DPI, was it seven or 8 modules, but they really looked and focused, and we'll look at them in a minute, on kind of like two main ideas. The team felt that a lot that was in the DPI modules, they covered in other units throughout the year. And so they really discussed, we need to do it separately. I think that we all kind of agreed that 2 lessons would be enough, focusing on a very focused part of signs and symptoms and a few other things, when we could easily schedule social workers in the classroom with the teachers at the time. So that's really the reason that they pared it down to 2 lessons. During this time in August, this was done at the Summer Institute, this team of health teachers also completed the DPI Gatekeeper training module for school staff. They also drafted, with the help of the social workers, communications to families that describe the unit, like main ideas, and also then how parents and guardians can continue conversations and future learning with some resources. And then they are still in the process of working in conjunction with student services to define how team members will be included in each lesson. Ideally, we'd like a co-teaching model. This might be a little challenging in some buildings that don't maybe have a full-time social worker. But again, with it only being 2 lessons, we think it's going to be much more doable. So you have been provided with a copy of the parent communication. You also, there's a PDF also included that has their entire lesson. So you can see the lesson plan format. It has a link to all of the slides and all of the activities. So I just tried to pare it down as basically the essential questions and the topics to be covered. So both lessons really focus on this first essential question about how can I demonstrate a variety of health practices and behaviors that maintain or improve mental health of myself and others. The first lesson, they go over the signs and symptoms of suicide, which is this fact. And then they also go through the signs and actions to take when they do identify those signs and symptoms and how they apply those. The second lesson then again has the same first essential question, but the second lesson moves into more specific self-care and what steps that they, avoidance, behaviors that they should avoid or risks that they should avoid, and then also what can they do to enhance, improve their own health. If you remember back to slide 3, and we had talked about it in our last couple of presentations, is that the state requires that whatever lessons are provided to students on suicide, suicide prevention, that they cover these 4 life skills. So making sound decisions, the knowledge of identifying signs of suicidal tendencies, what role youth suicide, what drugs and alcohol play in youth suicide, and then just knowledge of resources. The team kind of went through the slides with these in mind. They did ask for time. They're like, we need to revisit our slides. They're not finalized at this point. We do know that we hit these skills in these points, but there are some places that we know that we cover it in other units, but would also like to fine tune this area as well, just to make sure that they are covering all 4 with fidelity. So that brings us to really where we are right now. Given board feedback, possible action, then the team of health teachers and the social workers and the PE coordinator will plan to use October 23rd's professional time, development time, to make any adjustments from your feedback to these lessons. Again, like I just said, that they'd like to revisit and edit some of those slides, make sure that they're covering all those life skills, any revisions that are suggested to the family communication, and then they really do have to plan out with the school social worker or other student service members of how they're going to schedule and plan this, because we do really ideally want it to be a co-teaching model. And October 23rd is probably a couple weeks before they'd ideally actually like to start these lessons in November sometime, they had said. So with that, questions, suggestions?
I would just share quickly that the lessons are in board docs for you, and they're available there, and the handout at your desk is the draft of the communication.
Mr. Zenobia.
Thank you. So in the, I guess this would be the lesson plan, what would actually be gone through here? There's a cutout for like a referral card for a student, right? Is that something that would actually be utilized in the class?
Yeah, that's what, they call that an exit slip, and so every student fills it out at the end of the period. And this one, I think this one they wouldn't have to, because it's obviously if they want to talk to someone, and then they probably all put it in the basket, or the teacher might say then put your name on it. If you don't need to check any of these, don't check of it, but everybody just put it in the basket on their way out. And then that they would have a student service member be sure to touch base with the student or communicate.
Okay. So in that process, is that something that's going to be, or does it need to be notified to parents of how this would work? So I looked at the letter that was prepped, and I'm not sure if that was, if I saw it in there or not. But overall, the question I have is, parents understanding their students are going to take this, how, what feedback they might get, their student might serve, this piece of paper to someone, and then what's the process from there? How does it get followed up on, I guess is my question. Kind of walk through the process, I guess.
Yeah, well, if, for example, a student were to fill out that exit ticket and say that they would like to speak with someone, depending upon how they mark the exit ticket, one of them is within 24 hours, within the next week, meaning is it urgent or not?
Sure.
But either way, once that contact has taken place, parents would be notified of that as part of the process, to let them know that, hey, you're aware we were doing this curriculum, based on the letter that was sent home, as a result of the curriculum. And this honestly is not particularly unusual, and sometimes it's a matter of the student referring themselves for care, but more often, honestly, is I wanted to talk to somebody because I'm concerned about my friend. That is something that comes up very frequently as a result of these types of lessons. But either way, no matter what, that student services staff member would then contact that parent and let them know, what the concern was and what was discussed.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Kozlowski.
Thanks. I think this is much more condensed from where we started with. That was a whole lot to digest. But can you remind me again of the duration? So when we initially talked about it, the whole goal of this is that it wasn't going to be one of these one and done classes that we've seen in the past, that it was going to be structured over the course of time. Do we know what that timeline is as to when and how we're doing it? Because I suspect that from a parent letter, it may have to be sent more than once. Is that fair?
So timeline is pretty brief on these specific lessons. It would be 2 90-minute lessons. And that would be every other day, because the high school schedule would be every other day. So really about a week's time. With that being said, that would be when the social worker was in the class, and that's really why we had to do it 2 full 90 minutes. We just couldn't take up more of their days that way. However, when we look at the units that they already cover, some things, like, again, they felt like we cover the effects of substance abuse, and we have a substance use and abuse unit. We cover the effects and the impact that could have on one's mental health in that. We have a prevention and disease control. We talk about nutrition. We talk about disease. We talk about infectious disease and drug use. We have a personal health. We talk about personal responsibility to yourself and to your friends. So they feel that they cover some of those other main topics throughout, where this would be very specific, focused on the signs and symptoms of suicide.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
I appreciate the work that you all did following our last discussion. I know we threw some other resources at you to go and look at, and you did that. And working through all of this came back with, I think, the best elements of what could be taken from the resources that were available to us and complement what we were already doing. So I appreciate the vast amount of effort that was put into all of that. I'm reasonably satisfied with where we've gotten. There may be some other comments or questions. And I know we're looking at this as we want to implement this. We want to complement what we're currently doing. We want to make sure we have some efficiency in how we staff this and make sure that it's done with some degree of consistency and fidelity, and that we're sensitive to how the students may respond and how the parents may respond. So I think a lot of those pieces are there. I think also this was a little bit of an unusual situation for us, right? Because it's a portion of a curriculum and not a whole curriculum. And so we're trying to figure out how do we go about approving this, where we might end up changing the health curriculum at some point. And so I think if we're moving forward with this, my understanding would be that there may be a point sooner than later in the future where we may want to look at other resources. But this is, we need something, we want people to be trained, we want to have the consistency, and so we want to move forward. But unlike other cases where we may spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on curriculum, we still have some opportunity if there's something that evolves that might look different. So the two pieces that stand out to me are the one that Mr. Zenobia raised, and that is with the exit ticket. One of the checks is, I'm okay. The other two are, I might like to talk to somebody about something. I think it's important that our students have that follow-up if they need it, especially because of the weight of these conversations. But I don't know that I completely understand if that ticket is a mandatory activity, or if by not participating in that activity, there's some consequence in the classroom, or it just means that they're not seeking resources. So how are we handling that? It's just an exercise, or?
Exit tickets are used frequently in classrooms to just assess what students know at the end, right? So
This is so different though, right?
Yeah, right, no, so
Yeah.
I'm just saying teachers have kind of like a process where some teachers stand at the door and collect it as the student goes out the door. So then you know every student has actually completed it or can't get out of the room until they complete it. Some have a basket where they put it, some do it digitally, and the teachers can watch on their screen as each student completes it. So every teacher has their own process in which they do that.
I think to your point, the reason for doing this is, this topic, and I think part of the reason why we are taking such care with this topic is that this can provoke strong feelings in individuals that they may or may not even be aware that they're having. As someone who lost a family member to a completed suicide, this is something that gives me pause, right, to think about. And so I think what we're doing with the exit ticket is simply to check into students, to not just send them on their way, but to ensure that they feel okay moving forward. Because while the curriculum is there to instruct them as to being aware of their own mental health, for example. But we also have to give them the opportunity to reach out for help if needed. And I think that's really what this is for. In terms of your question about would there be some level of consequence for not doing this? No. It's really just an opportunity to, if needed, give that student a chance to, very discreetly say, I'd like some help. Now, of course, the student services team works really hard to make sure that students know who they are and how they can be found, but also understanding that if we're going to do this in November and we're doing it with ninth graders, there may very well be a ninth grader in that room who doesn't remember who their school counselor is. That's part of why we want to have a social worker in the classroom, but also part of the reason why we want to have this exit ticket so that they feel comfortable asking for that help if they need it.
And certainly not a graded or assessed part of the lesson. No. It is certainly something we can add to the parent communication, that at the end of the lesson, your students will be asked.
I think we need to not put any student in a situation where they feel like they have to, in a high emotion or high stress situation, if there's any confusion. I mean, what's important about what we're doing here is that they learn new skills and that they understand the resources that are available to them, and they're comfortable having the conversations and know where those trusted adults are. I could envision some confusion if a student goes home and says, or a parent gets this letter and the student goes home and says, yes, we did that today. And then at the end of that exercise, I filled out this card where I could indicate, whether I may want to have a follow-up conversation or not, or maybe that's not discussed. So I just want us to be really thoughtful about what that process looks like and how we're communicating that to students and families. I'm not saying that it's not the right thing to do. I'm not saying that it is the right thing to do. I just think that an exercise like this can become misunderstood in terms of the intent. And so I think it's really important that both the students and the parents understand the intent of the exercise. And again, our goal is to be able to have the resources available to the students when they need us. And this may be the right way for certain students to say, yeah, I want to have a follow-up conversation. It may even be related to a situation that they just want to talk through or haven't had the opportunity, or brings up some emotion that they haven't had the time to process. So I think also just understanding the full context of this, right? It doesn't mean that you're having a personal concern. It may mean that, but all of that is I guess it very much depends on how this is presented to the student, and that's the whole goal of the consistency in this, is that the expectations are clear across the board, student, parents, instructors. So again, I understand what and why, but I think that messaging and that consistency is really important. The other thing would be how important it is that they're actually looked at. So if they're completed, that they're not misplaced.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
yes. Yep.
And then the second thing for me is there are sample scenarios that were provided in the lesson plan. The scenarios are a big part of the instruction. So for the IACTT exercises, right? So we're looking at those like these are the scenarios that might be presented to students. They seem like a good variety, like they're age appropriate, like they're developmentally appropriate. But what I'm wondering is, would there be other scenarios? Would there be flexibility? Or are we looking at what the scenarios that are going to be discussed in the course are here? Because I'd like to know that this is what the possible scenarios are and that there's not 100 others that are going to be coming in.
That is the intent of this work, is to unify this team, because it was very different at each school. So these will be the scenarios.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, this is on the agenda for discussion and possible action. I'm not seeing any follow-up questions, so we could entertain an action or any recommendation for some additional work, or if anybody needs more time. I don't usually do this, but I'll just motion to approve the modules as presented.
Second.
Anything else?
I do.
Yeah.
Dr. Piasek's point on the exit strategy, and there was some social media things that are happening in other districts where they've got a similar type of an exit plan or an alert or an awareness, and it wasn't received well in particular cases because the kids felt compelled that they had to say something or not say something, or in the case of those that really need to say something, being protected and in a safe place to be that. And because the step to come forward, whether it's for self or friend, those are big, powerful emotions and a lot of things. And I share that I've also gone through family with a completed suicide. And these are big thoughts. And when we get to the point where they're very real and understanding all of that, I think I'd like that to evolve. I'm fine with where we're at with moving forward, but I do think as we start to walk through and maybe go through, how does this look and how does that go through? Are we learning anything about really being in tune to what could potentially be on this piece of paper that is handed with here could potentially be an outcry? And I think that's a really big deal really quick, you know, and so, and I know you guys understand that, but something that Dr. Piasek said really just resonated with me on the impact of how that works. And so I would like a follow-up on that, not to change what we think we're doing, because I think we're on that path, but how do we make sure that we just are wrapping ourselves around these kids?
Yep.
Right, wrong, and different.
And I'll just share with you sort of a parallel situation. You're familiar with the 5 Stones
Yep.
human trafficking curriculum that we've been using for a few years now. One of the things that happens prior to that, it's happening right now, is the dates, times, and locations of those lessons get shared with all the student services teams in the buildings where they're happening. The reason for that is so that people understand, and they do, that they need to look at their scheduling and their availability during those times if there is a need for more than one person to be available. And so our school psychologists, our school counselors, and our school social workers stand ready to respond to student needs. Part of what we will do with the scheduling of this, if approved, is to make sure that all of our student services teams are aware that, hey, these are the dates and times that we're going to be doing the suicide prevention curriculum in case you're needed.
And then share that as another option, so the students know that those resources are on hand as well. So I've got whatever we do for an exit, which is paper-driven at this
Yep.
point. And then, by the way, here's that. That is great, okay.
Yep, you can always go to student services if there's a need. Yep.
Additionally, just want to add that our Speak Up, Speak Out often has these same components, and so students have used it well. Obviously, part of the exit ticket could potentially be continuing that resource if one is not comfortable in that moment, so reinforcing that opportunity.
Yep.
I think it's just really important that there's no punitive response to not wanting to express or complete the, or even pressure, right? That it's, yeah. Okay, anything else? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to other business, we are going to have, other business, summer school,
So
which is under other business, I think. Okay, anyway. Summer school.
Up next, we have Mary Garcia Velez, who's connecting to the airplay. She is one of our elementary principals, but also supports our district-wide summer school programming. We partner, and early on in the year, we've already been talking about the next summer school coming up. Oh, and there's her family. So she'll work to bring our presentation up, but we just wanted to pause. We're into the school year, and we really want to take a moment to celebrate our summer school program, and she has some great pieces to share just about student success, and I'll share a little bit of the financial success as well.
It feels like everybody got a taste of summer school for the first month of the school year.
Do you want me to do it, Mary?
Great. What's that? I know, it's been great weather.
Okay, thank you. So sorry about that. So as we, just an overview of the things that we have had going on this summer for summer school. You see how many students are engaged at the elementary, at Get Ahead, at Horning, and at North. It was another very successful year of summer school. We have a variety of different offerings that we have, obviously with the readiness classes, enrichment classes, special education classes, ESL classes, dual language classes. Again, the distinction between ESL classes and dual language classes. So we can see the strength and conditioning and the drama, all the enrichments, the EB shirts and the band. What it does not include on here are jump starts. So jump start is like the kindergarten camp, we've called it in the past, and that's when kids are just entering into 4K or 5K, and they come to our school when nobody else is in the school except for them. And they have, in some instances, an hour, some instances 2 hours or 2.5 hours, and they just get a taste of what school is like before they actually start school. Oftentimes, this is coupled with a meeting with parents. So we have all the kids come in, go down to their classrooms, and then we sneak the parents in so the kids don't know their parents are there, and then we talk to them about our school and kind of give the highlights of our school. Towards the very end of the day then, parents have a little mini open house. Again, this is not the whole school open house, it's just that jump start. just with those kinders. We have the same thing with our middle school students when they're just getting used to middle school. In many instances, I know my fifth grade parents as well as the fifth grade students are excited about middle school, but they're also very nervous about it, and this gives them an opportunity to just get a taste of middle school. So if we're looking at all the kids that attended Jump Start and attended the middle school Jump Start, we had 1,116 kids just doing that. We only had one school that did not have it at elementary, and that was Hadfield because of a little bit of water. So that's another very exciting offering. So some very great things that we had this year. We had ESL beginnings in 6th through 8th. This is for kids who are just at the beginning of learning English from a variety of different languages. This gives them the opportunity to get a jump start before they're heading into school. We also had new this year an early childhood special ed program, which for our preschoolers, which was very exciting. And also new was this high school life skills. So many parents were very excited to have their kids involved in that. This is for kids who are going into high school, any of our high schools that already have a life skills class in high school. They got an opportunity to go to the library, they went to Panera, they went to McDonald's, they went to Retzer. Really gives them an opportunity out in the community to practice their communication skills, to practice life skills, to practice some math skills, and gives them a lot of fun activities to do. So that was a huge success this year and something that was brand new. As far as credits that were recovered by high school students, we had 191 credits recovered, which was amazing. And again, over 3,000 breakfasts and over 6,000 lunch meals. So our community and our kids that are attending our schools are eating our breakfasts and lunches. The only school that did not, elementary school that did not have breakfast and lunch was Summit View. And that has to do directly with the surrounding areas. This is just some pictures of things that are taking place during summer school. We have enrichment classes like Fun with Arts and Crafts, Crazy Science. At our building, they were dropping eggs, doing an egg drop after they built a contraption to save the egg from the top of our play set. But then you can also see some readiness classes that are happening, dual language readiness classes, and also regular ed readiness classes. So we offer so many great opportunities for our students to be involved in from the very littles all the way up to high school.
I was talking with Mr. Clark and wanted to give just a little bit of a financial overview. So I'm going to channel my inner Mr. Clark, but it's going to be high-level financial overview, okay? But overall, we asked him to look at just one full year of summer school because it does fall into budget calendars, and so that is always tricky. So then we can only look at the total year of summer school much later. So what we wanted to share is that we do have a positive fiscal impact from the 24-25 school year. That's not new for the 24-25 school year, but we just wanted to highlight some of the pieces. So overall, we look at $590,000 for the total expenditures, and you can see here that the most of that is wages and benefits for our staff who are doing it. One of the nice things about summer school is that a lot of our school year teachers are teaching summer school, and so that is a nice benefit. There's a calculation where ultimately we look at the amount of time that's number of students who are attending summer school, and then there's a math calculation to really look at a full-time equivalent. So for 24-25, it was 244 full-time equivalent students, which with the math calculation and support from the state, brings in over $1 million. In addition to that piece, there's also other tax reliefs that we have as a district since we have summer school program going on. And so overall, we're just happy to share that it's a great opportunity, but fiscally also a great opportunity for the district as well.
If I could just add something that is new. I've been doing this for maybe 10 years as a summer school principal, but we typically in the past with kindergarten camps, all schools didn't have it, and we also didn't count it as part of summer school, and we're doing it during the summer. So those jump starts now bring in money where in the past they had not.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Like we started out, I wanted to share that Mary and I are already talking about Summer School 2026. It's not too early to do that. So the planning is well underway. Once we know a little bit more about optimizing our future, we'll solidify building locations. And one thing I did want to share is that tentatively we have a start date of June 15th. And I just wanted to point this out on the calendar because this last year for summer school, we end the school year and then we don't have a week break in between. It's right away that Monday where summer school starts, and that's the same for this June as well. Some families love it and some families hate it, but we just wanted to just share that that's tentatively what we're looking at. But ultimately, our next step is to do a little bit more planning and bring the overall summer school program forward to you for your consideration. Thoughts or just questions on summer school?
Mrs. Koenig?
It's not so much a question, but gosh, we have just some phenomenal things that go on in this district. This is incredible what we were able to offer our students and families. So I want to thank you so much for the presentation and all that you do to make this as wonderful as it is. We are truly blessed here in this district.
Absolutely, thank you.
You good? Okay. I think I appreciate how we try to utilize the different facilities and then continue to bring some creative ideas into the summer school and respond to what the students and the families are asking for. So I know some of the get ahead stuff with the high school students is popular. I know there's a lot of flexibility, right? It doesn't require somebody being in the building. There's virtual content as well. So I think just that flexibility and giving students and families the opportunity to use their summertime appropriately, I think that's really grown a lot and improved a lot in the last few years. I know we're already trying to kind of plan schedules and things to go forward, but we can't quite have catalogs until we kind of know what staff we have, and then there's the facility conversation. So what, if anything, do you need from us as a committee or as a board to be able to start to plan to move forward?
I think if you're comfortable with the tentative start date, we just wanted to bring forward just an update, and ultimately we'll bring more information back for your overall approval. But if you're comfortable with the tentative start date, we want to just have that in our back pocket. And like you said, once we have schools determined, we'll start to, we'll come back for another conversation with you.
I think this is something that different families will respond to differently, right? I mean, we have kind of a wonky calendar this year, so it goes a little bit longer into June, and it'll be good for some, and there'll be vacations for others. So,
Yeah.
but there is flexibility.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any concerns? No, it all looks great. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary.
Okay, and last for tonight, we have some updates around our key performance indicators. We have kind of hot off the presses state assessment scores. So I think given the time to turn it around, we'll have a partial report tonight.
Yes, absolutely. So Jamie Hensel is here. As you alluded to, these are numbers that are hot off the press. So public data was released just 1 week ago. And so we've been working to bring a bit of a summary to you around how we did overall in all of our state assessments and really prioritizing the information around our key performance indicators. So Jamie Hensel is here. Now she's going to connect. All right. So she'll give an overview, and then we can have conversation and discuss more.
All right. Good evening, everybody. So like Jen mentioned, I'll be going over the results of our 3 KPIs as is related to our statewide data. So we will look at ACT for 11th graders. I threw in some pre-ACT secure for our 9th and 10th graders, so we'll review that, although not an official KPI for us. And then we'll also look at our Wisconsin Forward data, specifically 8th grade math and 3rd grade ELA. So we're going to jump in and take a look at our ACT data. So just as a reminder, so ACT is for our 11th graders, and it looks at the areas of English, math, reading, and science. So as it relates to our KPI is to increase the percentage of 11th graders that meet the college and career readiness benchmarks on the ACT assessment in ELA and math. So just as a reminder, we look at those benchmarks because it tells us students who are meeting those benchmarks are more likely to have success on a college level course. So we're going to look at our achievement data through two different lenses today. So we're going to look at it through an overall achievement lens, and then we're also going to look at growth. So we're going to start with ELA here. So you can see a couple bright spots for us. So when we look at our data from 24-25, we did grow 3 percentage points from the 23-24 school year. So we're at approximately 48% of our 11th graders meeting that benchmark. This is above the state at 44%. And if you look at last year as well, we had a 45% meeting the benchmark, compared to the state of 41%. So we continue to trend above the state percentage when we look at that as our data context. When we look at the area of math, we did see a slight decrease here from this past school year to the prior one. So overall, 29% of our students met the benchmark, as compared to 32% of the state. So this was a little bit higher last year, and we were trending higher than the state by 32% comparatively to the 30% of the state. And so you can kind of see too on this table, the gain and the loss. So we were about 3 percentage points below, and the state grew at about 2 percentage points. So although this is not a KPI any longer, it's just another common way that the ACT is looked at. So this is the ACT composite score. You can see our trends over time. So if we look at 23-24 and 24-25, those are more comparable years given the changes that occurred. So you can see that the state stayed relatively the same. We had a slight decrease in our overall composite score. And again, just as a reminder, the ACT still remains the same as far as the scale of 1 to 36. So I'm going to jump in with some pre-ACT secure data. So as I mentioned prior, so this is not officially a KPI for our district. However, I think it's still important to look at this data because we look at it just to see, like, are our students on track towards meeting that 11th grade ACT benchmark? So when we look at this, we can look again at our achievement and then our growth. So this table is broken down into 9th and 10th grade for both English and math. So something important to know about pre-ACT Secure is so we don't have a comparable ELA measure like we do on the ACT. So we're going to look at that English measure. So when we look at, first of all, our 9th grade and 10th graders on English, so in 24-25, about 52% of our 9th graders and 49% of our 10th graders on track are on average meeting the benchmark in English. Although we did have a little bit of a slight dip from 23-24, you can see the 53% for our 9th graders. Overall, the data is still telling us that our 9th graders are still relatively on track on average in the area of English. So when we look at math, so 29% and 32% of our 9th and 10th graders are close to being on track on average in meeting that benchmark. So this is an increase when we look at 9th grade from the 23-24 school year at 27% to 29%. So we had about a 2% gain for our ninth graders. We did see a little bit of a dip for our 10th graders there when you look at the math data. Something important to note is, so 23-24 was the first year that our ninth graders took the pre-ACT 8-9. And so you can see those arrows that are kind of going diagonal on the table really represent that cohort from 23 to 24, and then how they grew from 24-25. So we can see in math that they went from a 27% to a 32%. So we continue to watch how our students do on this pre-ACT 8-9, and we use this as a way to prep them for the ACT. So that's one actionable step we're taking really to help improve our performance on that ACT. So our students actually currently just took the pre-ACT 8-9, and overall our scores are higher than they were last year for our ninth grade. So that is actually a celebration of the great work that's being done in the system. So like we did for ACT, again, this is pre-ACT offers another view of looking at the overall composite score. So you can see here we did grow, so from 23-24 to 24-25, so by 0.5 points for our ninth graders there. Our 10th grade performance stayed relatively the same, as did the state. So you can also see back in 23-24, we were slightly below the state for our ninth grade, so 16.1, and the state was at a 16.3. And we, in this past year, are now above the state at a 16.6 compared to the 16.4. So we've seen some progress there as well for that group of students. All right, so we're going to jump into our forward KPIs. So we have two of them, the first one being 8th grade math. So just as a reminder, our KPI was to increase the percentage of 8th grade students who fall within that meeting and or advanced performance level on the state assessment in the area of math. So this is really a celebration. So if we look at our overall achievement and our growth, both are quite well. We did quite well. So when we look at, I just want to point out a few things worth mentioning. So in 23-24, 44.7% were meeting in advanced areas. So when we look at the state percentage of 51.40%, so we were about 6.7 percentage points below where the state was. So when we look at the gain that we've actually made, so we are now above the state. So we have made 7.2 percentage points of a gain in the area of 8th grade math on that state assessment. So quite a celebration. And when we look at 3rd grade ELA, so again, as a reminder, our KPI in this area was to increase the percentage of 3rd grade students at the meeting and or advanced performance level in the area of ELA. So again, we have some more celebrations here on this KPI. So in 23-24, we were at 58.5%. And so we were trending about 7.6 percentage points above the state, which has remained relatively stable. So again, in 24-25, we're about 7.6 percentage points above the state, as well as we grew with the amount of students who are proficient, meaning falling within that meeting and advanced categories at a 58.8%. All right, so if we kind of summarize and put it all together, so if we kind of take 23-24 as our baseline percentage, because this is when the state made a new assessment, there were new cut scores, so it's kind of our baseline starting out. And when we look at where we currently are, so we can compare our performance a little bit here. And so in the area of ELA, so when we started at a 45%, we're now at a 48%. We met that portion of our KPI. Our math, like I mentioned prior, did take a little bit of a dip, so we did not quite meet in that portion of the KPI. When we look at ELA third grade data, we did meet on this KPI as our baseline percentage started at a 58.5% and we grew at a 58.8%. In the area of math, specifically looking again at that 8th grade data, our baseline percentage was of 44.7% and our current percentage is 51.9%, so we would have met that KPI. So as we think about next steps in using the data, I just wanted to share a few things that we continue to do within the system when we look at our data. So over this past summer, we had a few of our schools engage in a data protocol process. So as part of this process, we looked at disaggregated data, and we used our state data as well as looked at some of the other data that we have in the system, really for program planning purposes, and as part of our continuous improvement within the system. So we also share our data and we work with the data with our administrators and our staff. And we will actually be having a data summit or a data delve here in October, where our secondary schools are going to engage more with the data, going through it, analyzing it, looking for some common goals and how they relate to their SLOs and for instructional planning purposes. All right, so thank you for your time, and I'll open it up to any questions or comments.
Who's first? Everybody's chomping at the bit. Okay, I'll buy you all some time. I do appreciate the jumping right into this for us, knowing that we had the meeting tonight, which would normally be next week. So I thank you for that. And for focusing on the KPIs that we've talked about, right? Because those are the kind of our barometer for what tells us are we moving things in the right direction. Mixed assessments, mixed data, some that we have years of historical data on, some that we don't, so further complicates. And I think there are bright spots, and then there are spots where we should be like, are we sure that we've got the right programming and things happening in these areas? So I think as we spend more time with that, to acknowledge that I think our high school students in particular have done an amazing job of recovering from a pretty significant disruption in their learning. But I think we're still seeing some of the effects of that, and I think that shows also implementing new math curriculum and new science curriculum and social studies, and so there's a lot of new pieces that were coming into that. So, and math is one in particular. Maybe it's just because it's math. It's so much more linear, at least for my brain. But you can't just drop in new curriculum and immediately expect everybody to kind of snap to the new place. I think our 11th graders were the first cohort to come through the new integrated math pathways as well. And so that comes with teachers working with curriculum for the first time, and so things all happening in a different way. But I was just looking back at the previous years of all of that data, ACT and forward, and okay, so first I had a question. So we have our individual student scores where we could do statistical analysis on that. Do we ever get the error bar data from the state, or do we just get the average? We don't get any distribution?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Which makes it impossible for us to really evaluate, are we inside or outside of those norms? Yeah. The numbers are so close, right? And we're a bigger district, and so it's probably not surprising that we trend with the average of the state in some of those areas. What I did find really interesting is I spent some time looking at the data on the WISE Dash portal because I'm always kind of thinking like grade to grade and cohort to cohort. What really stood out at me, and if others haven't had a chance to look at this yet, I would encourage you to go in and look at that. In math and ELA on the forward exam, our 3rd and 4th graders are substantially above the state averages, which was not the case in previous years. And so we tended to start out a little bit higher, and things would kind of level out. But when I look at where grade to grade, those state averages tend to be consistent from 3rd grade to 8th grade. That's not the case for us. We have, the one number that really floored me, our third graders on the math side, 68.8%, which is a number that we haven't seen before. So super impressive, compared to the state, average of 54, so 14 points ahead. Versus, I'm going to say the other number, and our fourth graders were also 12 points ahead of the state, and that is not the case in previous years. So it was single digit. The other thing, and like when I say previous years, though, you kind of have to stop and then go do 22, 23 because it's a different scoring. But you can do it if you're really committed to doing it. And then the other was also on ELA, fourth graders in particular. There was a pretty substantial jump, and so I say that because I'm not minimizing the fact that we've got other areas that we want to continue to talk about. But I think what we're doing with the elementary curriculum is working, especially on the math side. And I think the one place that I saw, I think it was like that 5th to 6th grade transition, right? These kiddos didn't have the opportunity of having some of that curriculum from the beginning. And so we threw a couple different packages of things at them, still doing well, like up in the 55 to 60% proficient, but to see a number like 68.8% with our third graders is just super exciting. And I hope that we can maintain that. And it'll be nice to have now subsequent years of the same data. And I think we have a commitment that even if the system were to change, that we would at least be able to go back. So I was very happy to see that. And even looking at some of our English language learners and, just the different categories of things was very reassuring. Okay, I gave you guys plenty of time. Mrs. Kozlowski.
I always love the data. I mean, and there's so much that this is where we get tongue-tied every year with you going in and trying to drill down, especially with the change in the goalposts moving and trying to build comparisons. But I do really like where we've started getting into the latter, where we've talked about we're going to be redefining this with each of the principals, and we're going to do this. And I think last year we had the high school principals come in and talk about how that impacts them, what they're looking at, how they're measuring it. When do we think you'll have that compiled to come back to us and really talk about what are we seeing on the ground within each of the schools, and what are they thinking, and how does that change how we're approaching it? Because to Dr. Piasek's point, we do have the right curriculum in place. We know we have the right staffing in place. We know we have all of the things that are going through that, and it's a work in process as to how you build this and grow with the students, especially as it compounds year over year. So, long story, when are you going to come back with kind of what we're hearing from the experts on the ground with the student results?
In the past, like you said, we had brought principals forward, so we definitely can bring them forward. The public data was just released, but we've been working with this data, like Jamie said, since as soon as we got it in summer. So we can have a group of principals come and share a little bit more and go a little bit more in depth with their process and where they're at with the continuous improvement pieces.
I think I would like that. Reason being, the whole point of our existence here is the education and how we're doing. And, the scores give us to 1 point, but the other thing that we start to hear about is the more refined pieces as to this is what's happening within our building. Here's where we've seen, here's the highlights, the lowlights, and really the evolution of how do we take this data just to improve where we're going. What we saw today was good. Overall, and that's always very positive, but this is so high level that it's very hard to say, tell me where we're winning, what is working well, and what are we learning about areas that isn't. I think that is equally important for us to be directing to.
Yeah, our teaching and learning team started to dig in a little too, and as we have conversations around optimizing the future, we've started to consider all this information as we contemplate what curriculum would look like as we move forward with any of the options with optimizing the future. So that has been already playing a part of that thought process for us.
Yeah,
Great.
absolutely. I would add too, as I mentioned, like our summer data work that we did with a few schools who went through that data protocol process, we really engaged in that work. So we looked at the data and we started from that 30,000-foot lens and really drilled down and tried to get in, okay, where are we noticing that our students are maybe struggling more, or where do we see the bright spots? And then how do we take that and really translate that into some actionable steps? And again, right, triangulating the data. What other data sources do we have that either supports that or tells us maybe this data is off? So those schools really engaged in a lot of that work. And then made that as part of their strategic action plan, so they have goals related to that. So they're really, and they have some robust plans as far as like what they're gonna do for some like action steps.
Great.
Yes. Andy?
Overall, very encouraging. I think at all grade levels, we're seeing improvement, and that's wonderful. I think maybe with some of the data that Dr. Piasek had shared, there's those students that didn't have a disruption from COVID, and now we have other students that are seeing some minor changes in curriculum and things, but for an improvement overall. Just to look at the math numbers that you brought up for the 11th grade, did you dig into that at all, or do you have any indication as to why the drop might be there, or maybe it's just an opinion?
Yeah, and again, right, some of it too is like to Dr. Piasek's point, like we're dealing with such small numbers and changes too. Like it would be nice to have okay, where are we within some of the ranges of this? I mean, we will take more of an in-depth look at that data as well too, as we look to see, okay, where are some of the gaps, or where are we seeing, why did some of our students drop a little bit in that area? So that will be part of our work on that October 23rd day, when we kind of engage in some of that. So schools will be each looking at their ACT and their pre-ACT data. So we'll dive a little bit more into that. So we have some specific answers, like when we look school by school.
Okay. Thank you.
I know we didn't go into these areas because they're not in our KPIs and there's so much data. And this may just be something for a future discussion. I think just looking at the social studies outcomes too, our fourth grade scores continue to increase. And I think steadily, I think a lot of that is a result of the impact curriculum that was put in place several years ago, and the importance of that. The reading levels are scaled with grade level, and I think that's a it's a very strategic piece of curriculum that appears to be working for us. I know we put some new things in place at the high school and middle school level more recently, but it would probably be good just to talk about how those new resources are working at the secondary level, because that's a place where we see a little bit of shift. And I think ultimately that ends up appearing in the ACT in different ways, just the way that the test is formulated. But I think those science and social studies pieces are relevant. They don't hit the top line like the math and the English do. So it's not like an immediate time sensitive thing, but I think I'd like to revisit the secondary social studies and just see how that new curriculum is working and how we've got it implemented.
Yep, for sure. We could do that.
Okay, anything else? Well, and just a reminder for you all to, we have the WISE Dash local instance as well as the public portal, so all kinds of fun. Okay. All right. Anything else that you guys wanted to share with us on assessments?
I think that's really it. Jamie's done a nice job working with the principals and our all admin meeting today too. You know, we're just engaging in that continuous improvement. It's ongoing. So in so many aspects of what we do.
Thank you, Jamie. Appreciate you putting all this together. Okay, that concludes our business for tonight. Are there any other recommendations for future meetings? Seeing none. Our next meeting is on Tuesday, November 4th, here in the boardroom at 7 p.m. Thanks.